Nuclear war and me trying to persuade people, don't drink. Take care of yourself, take vitamins, exercise. Your country needs you.
I love you, but I'm going to go get a cocktail.
I understand. I understand.
And I'm watching it. I have to watch you with a cocktail.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you, Joy. Have a great weekend. And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. You know, even though the weekend is coming up, Joy's is starting right now. Even though the weekend is coming up, even though it is a holiday weekend for many people because of Easter, it is still likely to be a very busy few days in the news coming up, even through the weekend and into the beginning of next week. This is sort of an unusually forward-looking Friday night. Usually at a time like this, we'd be looking back at what happened over the past week. Right now, we sort of are on the precipice of a whole bunch of news that's about to happen. Tomorrow in Washington, D.C., as Joy and other people have been reporting tonight, in D.C. and in dozens of cities around the country, there are going to be tax marches tomorrow. Tax Day protests, April 15th protests, basically against the new president, Donald Trump. The tax marches specifically will be demanding that he should release his tax returns. He, of course, remains the only president in the modern era who has refused to do that. Now, in terms of expectations, we don't expect those marches tomorrow to be as big as the marches that took place right after the inauguration, the women's marches. I don't know that any American protests will ever be that big ever again. But still, what happens tomorrow might be the biggest anti-Trump protests that have happened since the women's marches. So we shall see. Keep an eye out for that tomorrow in D.C. and in cities across the country. Also, expect over the course of this weekend an increasing pace of legal pressure and media attention and political pressure, maybe protests as well, focusing on the state of Arkansas. Because on Monday night, Arkansas is due to start this remarkable series of double-header executions, right? We talked about this last night. You've probably heard about this in the news. Arkansas has scheduled 8 executions. They plan to kill 8 prisoners over the course of 10 days. Their plan is to kill 2 men a night on 4 different nights over a 10-day period starting on Monday. So far, the courts have blocked 2 of the 8 planned killings, including one of the executions that was planned to be on Monday night. I mean, this is a very unusual plan from Arkansas. No state has done a mass execution like this since capital punishment was reinstated in the 1970s. Arkansas has not executed anybody at all in 12 years. Arkansas has never executed anybody ever with one of the drugs that they are trying to rush to kill all these guys with. I mean, the idea of a double-header execution, even just one double-header execution, let alone 4 of them in a week and a half, that is something that other states with more experience of capital punishment, they have warned against doing that. They say trying to do 2 in one night makes it much, much harder on the execution staff and on the medical teams, particularly if they are inexperienced. But again, that execution spree in Arkansas is supposed to start on Monday night. You will likely see a bunch of headlines about it late tonight, tomorrow, and through the weekend. Just tonight, just as I was coming down to the makeup room and then into the studio, just within the last few minutes, a court put in place a temporary restraining order that blocks the use of one of the 3 drugs the state was planning to use for these lethal injections. And the court has just blocked this drug that is not even the most controversial of the 3 drugs they were planning on using. So that ruling was just tonight, just happened within the last hour. The state says they are apparently going to appeal that ruling. So we'll see. Right now, it's a temporary restraining order that says the state can't use for any of those executions one of the drugs it was planning on. Expect the legal wrangling and the appeals and the political pressure and the media attention to stay heavy and to increase over the course of the weekend. Again, Arkansas wanted to start killing those guys on Monday. Right now, it's not clear they'll be allowed to kill any of them. On top of all that, there's also going to be a lot of electoral politics news over the next few days, because on Tuesday of next week, there's that big congressional election in Georgia, where Democrats are trying their darndest to take a congressional seat that has been red for decades. This is Health Secretary Tom Price's old seat. Democrats have coalesced around a young Georgia Democrat named John Ossoff. They're trying to turn the 6th district in Georgia into a blue seat. Democrats think they've got a shot at winning this seat. Republicans say that Democrats have no chance. We will find out soon, though. Early voting in that race ended today, and Election Day itself will be on Tuesday. You should expect a lot of attention toward that over the weekend. So this has already been a very busy week in the news. Early next week is stacked up with a bunch of really big things in the news. But before we even get to that stuff early next week, we do have to make it through tonight and this weekend. And part of the new uncertainty around that, the reason lots of people in the news business canceled plans for this weekend, and everybody's on call at least, is because this weekend is the birthday of Kim Il-sung, who's the founding president of North Korea. And of course, it's a birthday. It happens every year. But this year, it is happening while we, too, in our country, have a new president. And our new president has just had a particularly balmy week. Balmy as in bombs away, not balmy as in nice weather in Mar-a-Lago this weekend. Last week, Thursday night, the new president abandoned his long-held public emphatic insistence that the United States should not launch attacks on Syria, even if Syria used chemical weapons. Last week, he threw out that long-standing public position, what we believed to be the policy of the United States of America, since he had campaigned on it and he's commander-in-chief. He threw that policy out the window, changed tack 180 degrees, and a week ago last night, launched 59 Tomahawk missiles at a Syrian airbase. Now, this did not represent, apparently, some sort of deliberate change in U.S. policy towards Syria. It now seems clear that that missile strike was, if anything, an abandonment of what had been stated U.S. policy in Syria. Part of the way you can tell that is that that missile strike has been followed by a week of confused, contradictory, all-over-the-map statements from the administration about what that missile strike was for, why the United States did it, what it means about what we're trying to get done in Syria in the larger sense that we now have started shooting missiles at their air bases. I will say, from a White House perspective, it seems that they are less concerned about the criticism of their incoherence on this matter and more just excited about how that missile strike got the president the first good round of press he has had in his entire presidency. I mean, there do remain these niggling questions like, what was that for? What is the United States trying to do in Syria? What are 1,000 U.S. service members risking their lives for tonight in Syria? What is the U.S. mission in Syria? And does that missile strike help or hurt that mission? Those questions remain. There also remains an interesting question about how the decision was made to launch that strike. The administration released, of course, this makeshift situation room photo from the night the strike was launched. For a big change in course military decision, there are some unexpected staffers in the Situation Room who are apparently participating in that decision. I mean, there's the chief economic advisor to the president. There's the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, Goldman Sachs guy. What's he doing there? There's Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross sitting right next to the president. The president's 36-year-old son-in-law was there. Also, Spicy's there back in the corner. White House spokesman, why is he there? The guy from Breitbart is there. Yeah. We do not see in this photo the Director of National Intelligence or the CIA director or any military personnel other than the one uniformed gentleman who is standing at the door. Tonight, a former CIA official tells us that the reason the Director of Central Intelligence, Mike Pompeo, was not there in that room, in fact, he wasn't in on the decision to launch that missile strike at Syria, is because he was giving a speech that night to a private equity group. So he didn't participate in the decision. So the Central Intelligence Agency director wasn't in on this, didn't participate in it. But meanwhile, don't worry, Steve Mnuchin was there, helping make the decision to bomb Syria. So the banking world got to have its cake and eat it too. That was the start of this literally explosive week for this young presidency. Then yesterday it was bombs away again. The new president has yet to talk about Afghanistan since he has been president. He has yet to articulate any policy or even general inclination toward that 15-year-old war. The basic idea, at least in terms of what most Americans think we're doing there, is that thousands of U.S. troops are still in Afghanistan because the U.S. military is trying to create a security environment in which the Afghan government can stand up. U.S. troops are there in support of the Afghan government and Afghan security forces so that country doesn't fall again to the Taliban like they did before 9/11. I mean, I think that's the basic idea we all have as Americans as to what we are doing in Afghanistan. But into the middle of that fight yesterday, the new administration decided to roll out a gigantic super bomb that had never been used before in combat. The United States has had these mega bomb GBU-43Bs. They've had these bombs, the mother of all bombs. They've had them for about 14 years. They cost about $16 million each. No other commander-in-chief has ever seen the need to use one before now. But yesterday, they decided to roll one out in Afghanistan. Why not? For context here, the United States does not have an ambassador in Afghanistan. The president has not spoken on Afghanistan. He has not said what he wants to do in that country. But militarily, he's just done something that's never been done before there or anywhere. For some reason, he just used the most unimaginably giant bomb the United States military has got short of a nuclear weapon, and he used it to kill, reportedly, about 36 ISIS-affiliated fighters. About $500,000 per guy. Here's a very strange development on that story that has just broken tonight. Last night, on that story, The Hill newspaper published a story about that bomb, the use of that bomb, the decision to use that bomb. And in their story, The Hill published a number of quotes from somebody who they described as a CENTCOM spokesman. And the quotes were attributed to an unnamed but apparently official CENTCOM spokesman. CENTCOM, of course, is the military central command, which means it's the part of the U.S. military for which their area of responsibility is the Middle East. And so they're quoting this CENTCOM spokesman, military spokesman, but the quotes are a little weird for a military spokesman. I'll show you what I mean. Asked by The Hill about what else was in the area that was hit by that giant bomb other than these ISIS fighters, the spokesman told The Hill this, quote, "I can guarantee there's nothing in the area. It's pure enemy." It's pure enemy. Military spokesmen in the United States don't talk like this. But then there's this. Asked about why they used this giant bomb that the U.S. has never used before, the spokesman said this, quote, "We mean business. President Trump said prior that once he gets in, he's going to kick the beep out of the enemy. That was his promise, and that's exactly what we're doing." This is a U.S. military spokesman? Seriously? Actually, no. Turns out not. CENTCOM just tonight put out a follow-up press release. Look at this. This is actually from CENTCOM, and it's got a named person on it. For immediate release, U.S. Central Command Media Advisory. Subject, statements attributed to unauthorized CENTCOM spokesman. Statements published on April 13th attributed to a U.S. CENTCOM were made by an individual unauthorized to speak on behalf of United States Central Command, and those statements do not reflect the professionalism of CENTCOM, said Major Josh Jacques here today. These statements fail to portray the values of more than 80,000 service members of the U.S. military currently serving in the CENTCOM area of responsibility, says Major Jacques, CENTCOM Media Division Chief. Quote, "Our media engagement mission is to provide accurate, impartial information to the public and their media representatives worldwide. Those inappropriate statements do not reflect the official views of CENTCOM or its leadership." The named spokesman added that the unofficial statements undermine the confidence of the public who expect more responsible and thoughtful insight. Wow, who's the fake spokesman? Who was telling the Hill newspaper that they were CENTCOM spokesman and they spoke on behalf of CENTCOM and they gave all these quotes? And it wasn't actually a CENTCOM spokesman. How is this something we have to worry about now? Fake spokesman? So, I mean, in terms of real take it to the bank information here, we really don't know much about why they used that giant bomb in Afghanistan. But when a supposed military spokesman says it was because Donald Trump wants to kick the bleep out of the enemy, turns out that wasn't a military spokesman. And CENTCOM has now apologized. That itself is very strange. There's that. So no one's quite sure how or why the call to use that particular weapon was made. We're not sure who to trust when we get an explanation about it. But regardless of all that, one thing the use of that bomb definitely did here at home was it produced another day of very excited, slightly confused, but nevertheless overwhelmingly positive good press for only the second time in this young presidency. First time was the missile strike. Second time was the mother of all bombs. So he's had 2 full days of good press, and both of them were for this young president, this new president, deciding unilaterally to blow some stuff up, arguably without much consideration for how doing that would strategically fit into any larger American interest or any larger American military project. So that is the week that we are just coming out of. And now we have a weekend. Today, Air China canceled their regularly scheduled 3 times a week round-trip flights between Beijing and Pyongyang in North Korea. Air China has been a little vague as to why they canceled these flights, but it's not the first time they have called those flights off. Whether this was done for commercial reasons or political reasons or security reasons, we cannot say for sure, but what it means in practical terms is that the Beijing to Pyongyang air route, as of tonight, is now only served by one air carrier. It is served only by Air Koryo, K-O-R-Y-O, Air Koryo. And among other things, Air Koryo is internationally famous for its food. There is one foodstuff you are served as a passenger on Air Koryo. Famously, you only have one choice. Your choice is, do you want it or don't you? But the only thing they offer you is their burger. It arrives at your seat, wrapped up in a little cartoony wrapper. It says Hamburg on it. A little character sliding something very small into something that looks like vanilla wafers. I don't know. Now, it's kind of cute. It arrives in a little wrapper. Turns out it is not served in that wrapper to keep it warm. The burger is reportedly served ice cold. And when you unfold its little cartoony wrapper, what you find is, ta-da! Behold, that is the burger. We have a number of pictures of the burger because it seems like anybody who has ever flown on Air Koryo, anybody who has ever been able to evade the no pictures rule and sneak a picture of the food, it seems like everybody has managed to take a picture of the burger and post this picture online. Feast your eyes on that. That is the food. That's the burger.